Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column Live. It's the 19th of February 2013 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Brian Garish and Mike Robinson are here in Plymouth as always. Good afternoon, Brian.
Yep, good afternoon.
What's it doing outside?
Lovely sunny day, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you can notice the difference in people, they're actually smiling. So we've got blue skies in Plymouth, pretty chilly wind, 5 degrees, people enjoying themselves. But I think the government's going to put a stop to that pretty quickly.
Not completely blue skies though, there are a few little suspect things on and
that's
suspect lines
that's
up
true,
in the sky
but it's good as it gets.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think you're starting today.
Well, I'm sorry to do this to viewers today, but we think we should give this man a mention because basically we've no idea what he's doing. So the Mirror has picked up Ed Miliband. Remember that the Miliband family are grounded in Marxism. Please check that out for yourself. So 2 extremely interesting political figures in British politics, but nobody has any idea what they're doing, apart from Ed playing with some money here, and of course his brother playing with rendition flights. But check it out for yourself. Maybe we should send him a postcard of support because clearly he's fading. What about this family?
This family are spending lots of our money, and apparently there is now calls for the royal family to face an inquiry into their expenses, which will decide whether they provide value for money to us. Right. The inquiry is going to be launched later this year, apparently, by the House of Commons, the Public Accounts Committee, and it's going to grill the Queen's closest allies. And according to the report, they will decide on the scope of the investigation after the National Audit Office gets access to the Queen's finances next month. Apparently, the Queen will receive £36.1 million in April to fund her official duties, and that sum enjoys a 16% increase on the £31 million paid by taxpayers last year.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? I thought the National Audit Office was going to be broken up, but presumably the Magic Circle are going to audit each other to their entire satisfaction.
Yep, so it seems.
BBC, we must bring into the spotlight because, of course, BBC journalists have been getting upset because they've now suddenly worked out that they also are going to come under the government's knife and the jobs are being axed. But of course the BBC contains many precious people, so they've come out on their strikes, but the papers are already picking up the fact that they are moaning or bemoaning the fact that they're being subjected to terrible abuse on Twitter.
Oh.
So here they are with their National Union of Journalists, which of course is a closed shop and doesn't like anybody in the free media or the alternative media. But here they are looking very unhappy because they've woken up to what reality of life is all about. So well done, BBC. And in the background, and perhaps people are forgetting about this too soon, we've got the subject of draconian government controls over the mainstream press and media. The Mail here is just one of the papers that seems finally to have woken up to what the government is trying to push through. And if you look at the articles in the paper, it's obvious that a smokescreen is being created so that people don't really realise who is on what side, but the ultimate agenda is massive state control of the press. So this article praising Lord Leicester, who's actually warned about what he's saying is Labour attempt to shackle the media, whereas the reality is, of course, that via the Media Standards Trust, a whole raft of more Magic Circle people are attempting to get government control. I'll just focus on this gentleman, Lord Putnam. That's Lord Putnam on the left. Of course, Leveson on the right, the man who interviewed Media Standards Trust campaigners and hacked off and others as if they were independent in his inquest.
Yeah.
But Lord Putnam here, very interesting man because he wants the draconian controls to come in. He did a speech in the House of Lords recently. I'd just like to read one of his paragraphs. I was forced to come to terms with the fact that once the media, politicians and the police begin to collude with each other or discover a shared agenda that is neither transparent nor in the best interests of the public at large, at that point even the finest judiciary in the world are rendered effectively powerless. The toxic triangle of a needy and fragile politics that believes itself dependent upon or simply enthralled to an element of the media. And so he goes on. But essentially this man pops out of nowhere. What is his experience? It's to do with films and the media, but he's been advising the government on education since about 1988. And here he is now calling for draconian controls of the press. And he bases all of this on the shocking news that Millie Dowler's phone was hacked. Of course, none of these people are standing up in the House of Lords to talk about the shocking abuses of the paedophile rings, which we now know include senior members of Parliament. And of course, David Cameron, we better just show Chairman Cameron, because here he is trying to say that he's warning that legislation could prove to be the thin end of the wedge and allow future politicians to interfere with the press freedom. So the complete dishonesty is he is driving through draconian legislation to control the press, but of course he says, no, 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 I'm the man standing up for freedom.
In that picture, he had one of the Tony Blair's hand gestures there in that last shot.
Well, we've now got some qualified people who are actually watching the politicians for neuro-linguistic programming in their talks, and also the use of hand signals. But before we leave the topic of free press, I'd just like to point out to viewers that this is Common Purpose's Handbook, Julia Middleton's book, Beyond Authority, and in it about 5 references refer to Lord Putnam. So the man who wants to bring in the draconian controls from Leveson is also, of course, a big fan of Common Purpose and presumably the Media Standards Trust. Mm. Chairman Cameron, just to ensure that we know that this is David Cameron. This is David Cameron in a special relationship with India. This is David Cameron playing cricket. And I'd just like to point out that if I circle this for our viewers, we can see that there are no bails on the stump. So technically, Mr. Cameron is out, and we hope he will be very shortly. This is David Cameron pontificating on the BBC strike, and this is David Cameron pushing more arms sales in the world. He's not there talking about medicines and food, we're talking about how to kill people. And here is Cameron worried that he's not getting enough support from women, so he's going to bring them into his cabinet. Lucky women. We'll move on to more serious things, and the Mail article here is significantly reporting that the Americans are getting worried about elite Chinese army units masterminding hacking attempts against US government and companies. The interesting thing about this is both Obama and Cameron are trying to tell us that China, of course, is now a democracy, and yet here we've got straightforward evidence of what can only be a malicious attack on Western democracies. Could it be linked to this story in the Express, which is saying that Britain and India are to wage a joint war on hackers to defend cyber systems against terrorists? Presumably they don't mean that Britain and India are about to attack China. We could always send the Royal Navy, which is...
Oh no, the Royal Navy are busy sending a frigate off to Libya to sell arms to Libya. It's part of the UK Trade and Investment Organisation, and at the beginning of April a Royal Navy frigate will dock in Tripoli and start selling arms. They're hoping to attract key senior military personnel from the Libyan government.
Well, we'll just show a quick view here of UK Trade and Investment website. Under the title "Creativity is Great," we can see that Britain as a nation is boasting its ability to produce these tiny dolls. Well done, UK Trade and Investment. It's arms, all that.
Proud to be British there.
Absolutely. Now we follow up on the military theme with this very, very interesting article from The Guardian, which is pointing out that British and Irish troops are to set up as an infantry training team in Mali. How's all this come about? Well, the article tells us that it's the result of the Queen's visit to Ireland. The Queen's visit was so successful that Ireland's Defence Minister Alan Shatter can tell us that there's going to be closer ties, and there's another step along the road of development and the continuing broadening and enhancing relationships with the United Kingdom. So that's fascinating, but let's go a bit deeper. Because the MOD stresses that Britain's not providing combat troops. The combat is going to be carried out by French and Czech troops. So welcome to the European Army. And of course, what we've got here is a testing zone. So let's go and have a war in Africa to help train the European Army. But sorry, Mike, if I can just continue down there. The key bit at the bottom is that they're also going to be preventing sexual violence. And under a special Foreign Office initiative, we are going to be there to provide human rights and gender awareness training. So presumably the poor Mali people don't really realise what sex they are. And we'll just finish off with the last bit, which is that we are there to tackle violent extremism and any threats to our national interests. For national interests, read the City of London and mining. A lot of that is hot air, of course, which probably brings us on to you, Mike.
Well,
I don't mean that personally. I mean that because we've got some cooling towers here.
Electricity. We're going to have quite a lot of our electricity generating capacity switched off by 2015, and we've talked about this before. The thing to note about electricity, of course, it's not a commodity like coffee or water. It's not something that can be stored and delivered whenever it's needed. It's generated as we need it, and we've got to be able to provide that to people as we need it. If we overproduce, it's wasted. If we underproduce, people's homes get switched off or their business gets switched off. So if we just look at our generating capacity, the breakdown of our generating capacity, we find that 30% of it is generated through coal and oil. So that 30% is going to be switched off as a result of an EU directive on carbon capture and storage. And basically, will no longer be able to use fossil fuels to produce electricity if we can't capture the carbon dioxide that's produced. And of course, there is no such technology for that. Today, the Ofgem head of Ofgem, Alistair Buchanan, was basically warning that we're staring higher prices in the face. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, so I'm glad he's finally catching up. It's amazing how people finally catch up with us at some point. What he's saying is that there will be in fact, this 30% that has to be switched off by 2015, 10% of it is going to be switched off by this April. So we're already down 10% on our generating capacity, and what he's basically saying is this is not the result of a single person or people. It's his view that it was a single event, the financial crisis. Before the financial crisis, the government had backed a visionary approach to energy on wind, water and nuclear. Then came the financial tsunami.
This is a complete lie, isn't it, that it was the financial crisis, because there's been no strategic planning on replacing generation infrastructure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's just put some faces on who is to blame. There you go. They're the people. They are to blame. They have allowed the energy companies to take obscene profits over the last lot of years, while they're effectively asset stripping the country. They've taken the profits, they've invested nothing. But one face that we haven't got on here, of course, is Margaret Thatcher, because it was her policy in the first place to sell this stuff off to private companies. So Buchanan is now saying that we have to invest, but it's too late. The energy companies have already taken that. They're not going to have to give back their profits. They're going to try to take more money out of us in order to rebuild that infrastructure.
Yeah. The picture of these three is very interesting, apart from the fact that, of course, Gordon Brown, many people were saying, was becoming unstable in the latter days of his occupancy in number 10. But people need to deal in terms of who are the individuals responsible instead of blaming the government or the department. It's time that ordinary people started to actually pull out the names of the individuals. These are the names that need to be circulated on the internet. These are the names that need to be brought in front of your own MPs. These people need to be brought to account. I think it's really important that if you're sitting thinking, what can we do about this, you've got to go for the individuals concerned. And of course, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people could really turn this around very quickly.
Well, as a final point, one of the things that Buchanan was saying is that there'll be no relief on this problem. Basically, we're going to have to import extra gas, extra electricity from foreign countries. We're at the mercy of the markets, so to speak. There'll be no relief, he said, until 2020 at the earliest. But we got to notice that although there is planning permission for new power stations in place, there are no projects in place to start building these things. And just to give an impression of how serious the situation is, the government has issued offers to tender to foreign companies to come to Britain and build our new generation power stations, including nuclear, and none of these companies want to come. Britain, as far as they're concerned, is a lost cause already. We've got to sort this problem out, and the first step is to get rid of the people that are running this country at the moment and put some sensible people in charge instead.
Well, what a gross insult to ordinary people in Britain that we're not capable of looking after our own nuclear energy. So the country, the training, the skills training has been ripped to shreds by these people, and they then turn around and say, well, actually we need to bring in foreign workers to build our strategic infrastructure. It's a gross insult to ordinary people. Psychopathic, maybe. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. It's just somebody I've just noticed in the chat box. There's breaking news apparently on RT that North Korea has threatened the South with final destruction. So thanks, Beckers, for that.
That sort of rhetoric has been going on for many years, but we agree that that area of the globe is a very dangerous flashpoint, and we will certainly have a look at that. Thank you for shouting. What's been happening in Red Hill, Mike?
This is actually a week old now. We didn't see it at the time, thanks to the person who sent it to us. But basically, Red Hill was used as a setting for a drill of a chemical attack. Decontamination teams and chemical experts descended on a Red Hill shopping centre for a unique fire drill, apparently. And I just wanted to highlight it because we've been reporting in the last few weeks of this type of activity going on in the United States. We have seen these kinds of things happening in this country as well, but they're generally reported on a very low-key basis. I just wanted to let people know on a broader basis that this is happening. Yeah,
we are also getting reports from individuals who say that the word on the streets is that there's some form of trouble on its way, and of course what people are indicating is this will be started by our own government. So we wait for more news on that. But could it be that there's an attempt by the government to stir the pot? Why is a key question you may ask, and of course it's the Civil Contingencies Act. On an excuse, the government can produce this massive clampdown, and that's why we need people to be digging, researching, but staying calm and measured. And what's this one here? I can't read it without my glasses. It's childcare in...
This is actually an item from Australia, and really the item itself isn't that important. If basically what they're saying is that the Australians are going to put new hygiene rules in place, which say that children can't blow bubbles, they can't blow out candles on a cake, they can't touch doorknobs unless they've been cleaned first. But it was really one of the comments that I wanted to highlight, Just reiterating the point that you made earlier on. This guy is saying, who are these faceless control freaks who keep trying to tell people what to do? Let's put a name and a face to these people, and then I'll bet they'll quickly shut up and stop trying to tell people what to do. This is exactly the right thing to do. We put names and faces on the people that are doing this stuff. That was really the point that I wanted to make there.
Right, we didn't actually put that one up on screen. Should we just show viewers what we were doing there? So I'll just come back to that one. There it is, Adelaide now. And it's interesting that this stuff that's going on in UK and the States is also happening in Adelaide. And this is the comment Mike was referring to there. Okay. Which moves us on to health issues.
I couldn't believe it when I read this morning. It was up on Mercola.com, and apparently the Coca-Cola beverage company have got its own institute for health and well-being. and it's claiming that aspartame is safe for use by nearly all of the population, except those who are born with a genetic disorder, PKU. And it's just shocking because aspartame is now used in more than 6,000 products worldwide. Coca-Cola, having so many products, it has aspartame is in all of them. And I believe there's an article in the UK column this month about aspartame and the dangers and its history.
Yes, and we'd also like to, if you want to research the dangers of aspartame yourself, obviously have a read of Louise's article in the UK column, but you might like to Google a French lady called Corinne Gouget, who has done a lot of work on the dangers of aspartame, and I'm afraid the evidence is overwhelming. For me, at least, it is dangerous stuff.
Yeah, but for Coca-Cola to have an institute for health is just ridiculous.
Well, they probably need one.
Yeah.
Liberty Beacon, what have they been up to?
Liberty Beacon, they're actually picking up on a study that Natural News has been doing with regards to the company Merck, who are a vaccine company. And according to two scientists who used to work for Merck, they're saying that their company falsified its mumps vaccine test results and fabricated at 95% efficiency rate. It used falsified trial results to swindle the US government out of hundreds of millions of dollars for a vaccine that does not provide adequate immunisation. Merck also used its false claims of 95% effectiveness to monopolise the vaccine market and eliminate possible competitors. The entire fraud has taken place with knowledge and authority and approval, apparently, by Merck's senior management. Merck scientists witnessed firsthand the improper testing and data falsification in which Merck engaged to artificially inflate the vaccine efficiency findings, according to official court documents. And this is a study that Natural News will be following up on a little bit more.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
And the NHS is giving us cocktails, but the wrong sort.
Yeah, it's today in the Mail. A growing number of patients in this country are on a daily cocktail of drugs to treat medical conditions, prevent others, and and to deal with the side effects of prescribed medications. The number of prescriptions per head of the population has actually increased from 11.9 in 2001 to 18.3 prescriptions a year back in 2011. Most of the increase has been prescribed for the elderly, and the age group apparently is taking between 8 and 12 different types of medications daily.
Yeah, and of course one of the things being reported to us by people in the NHS is that doctors are receiving no other training than look at the computer screen and then just look down the list of drugs and prescribe the best one you think.
Yeah.
And we have seen evidence of ourselves, of patients who have been given these cocktails. In one case, 11 different drugs. When you went through the fact sheet with each one, it was obvious that the side effects were not only dangerous, but several of those drugs should not, or the medication should not have been given in combination.
With others,
do not
exactly.
have that. Yeah.
Yep.
Just incredible. And
Obese children.
obese children.
Yeah. I think this is pretty disgusting, this article. A doctor called Professor David Haslam has said that obese children should be offered stomach surgery in an effort to help them reduce their weight to safer levels. He has said some children will experience medical problems more commonly expected in people over 50. He said not enough children were offered operations because current commissioning guidelines deny under 16s this options. Doctors fear obesity crisis is becoming unresolvable and are calling for society as a whole to act before it becomes irreversible. Why don't we start teaching children about health and nutrition
And proper diet.
and
yeah.
proper diet
And exercise.
rather than getting them under the surgeon's knife.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, let's stop selling off playing fields, for example.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Well, absolutely true.
Yeah.
Massive selling off of playing fields. Was it designed to create children who were fat and disadvantaged in that way?
Exactly.
We just, as we come into our last 5 minutes, we're just going to take a look at some general stuff coming through. The Express here is back on the good old subject of 2/3 of Britons want us out of the EU. Our opinion on this is that the real rot is not coming from the European Union, it's coming from Westminster. And we think that at the moment the mainstream press are ramping up this false debate over the European Union because, of course, there is no referendum. Mr Cameron wants us to vote him in. Trust me, vote Mr Cameron in for another term and then he will give us a referendum. That's blackmail, of course. Meanwhile, we're going to teach people in Mali how to be democratic. So we think this is pure media manipulation to get people's focus onto the European Union question and not the fact that Britain is being destroyed from within by its own politicians. How do you destroy a country? Well, you get people at each other's throats. And so here's a good article where it's being suggested that taxes have got to rise to pay for the elderly within the Scots care system. This article actually points out, of course, that the Scots don't have their own care system. But if you look at the undertone of the article, it's let's get people aggressive and at each other's throats. And in this case, presumably the English and the Scots. So I hope people both sides of the borders will see through that scam. And let's ramp up the dissent further. So here's the Express now starting to stab a finger at families on welfare. And of course it's saying a staggering 40,000 families on welfare have 5 or more children. So we've got to stop having children. But the issue here is the government has absolutely helped create the welfare state in this sense. And once people are hooked, there are no jobs, there is no skilled training, there's no way of getting out, then you turn around and point a finger and blame them. It's pretty disgusting stuff. And if that isn't enough, we're featuring the Express here because they seem to be doing the deed. Here's a classic example. So we've got this classic redhead. This mother of 11 is about to get her own £400,000 house because she's got 11 children and she's on state benefits. And the article says this is disgraceful, people are going to be angry and aggressive. And of course that's what the whole thing is designed to do. So don't blame the lady in question. Start to blame the politicians, and we've shown you some of those who are causing the trouble.
It's exactly what Thomas Sheridan, the Irish author, he was on my show yesterday, and that's exactly what he was talking about the media manipulating to cause this hatred between people. Exactly that. Yeah,
if we can see through it, of course, we can stop it. Now, usually we've got a couple of minutes to spare, which is fine. If you want to start understanding what's happening in the country, get a copy of the UK column, which is on its way to people as we speak. We've started to analyse what's happening, and in particular we're focusing not only on the economic situation and the fraud of the banks, but also on big society. Big society is in fact an extreme socialist agenda. If you want to start understanding it, this is a very, very good little book written in the 1960s. You can trust the communists to be communists. And if I just read one short paragraph here. The title of this book is not as startling as it may seem, because in one sense the communists can be trusted. They have stated their intentions, their beliefs, and even their methods in plain, unmistakable words in every language the world over. And they can be trusted to follow these intentions unceasingly. So if you want a simple delve into the ideology that is now destroying this country, you can call it Marxism or communitarianism, whatever you like. But what is happening is this country is being destroyed from the inside, and we're looking at Westminster. And if you want to come in at a different angle, and this book really says it all, it's called The Lemming Folk, and it's written by a gentleman, I think unfortunately he's passed away now, called James Gibbs Stewart. If you're still with us, Mr. Stewart, that's excellent. And he's focusing on, you can't read it, sorry, where's it over here? But Lemmus Britannicus. So he's talking about the British who are as stupid as the lemmings and running over the cliff face. So if you'd like to do some light-hearted reading to understand what's happening, thoroughly recommend those two books.
That's right.
I've also been asked just to say if anybody would care to give us unused first-class stamps, we're very, very grateful to receive those because we have more columns to be posted out, and the rise in postal charges has been pretty severe, so if you care to do that, and if anybody would like to take on a subscription, that would also be excellent.
And we have the UK Column monthly meeting tomorrow night in the George at 7:30 as usual.
Okay, and we'd just end by saying thank you very much to the Irish supporters who are showing interest in what we're doing. So let's get people working together in Britain and across international borders, but for the right purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you.